Good evening, everyone. We're ready to start. It's 6 o'clock. This is the Cabinet of Gloucester City Council meeting on the 12th of March 2025. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may be used for training purposes. The second item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I can see all the Cabinet members are here. The second item is declarations of interest. I don't know if the Cabinet members have got anything to declare. Officers, no. And then there's the minutes of the meeting on the 12th of February. Are you happy to accept them as an accurate record? Yep, I'll sign those. Next item on the agenda is public question time. I just wonder, is Mr. Topping here? He's not. And we're past the time. So we'll move on from public questions. And we go to petitions and deputations. We've not received any, have we? Nope. Item 6 is Leader and Cabinet Members question time. The first set of questions are from Councillor Alistair Chambers. I know he's around somewhere, but he's not here this evening. He's been in County Council all day, so maybe he's exhausted like I am. But he's not here to ask his supplementaries. Similar, Councillor Condor is not here. Then we then move on to Councillor Gravels. I think you're next. Do you want to take a seat? Yeah. You've got plenty of time. First, before we start, I just want to ask you, with regard to question 10, whether you're declaring an interest in question 10, either personal or prejudicial interest, because I know you've been asking questions by email and you've been copying in one of the applicants' bidders. So would you like to just make that clear so that it's been recorded that you have an interest in that more than just being a member of the council?
No, so I have no interest to declare. So on several occasions, Mr. Daldry, who's here, emailed all of Gloucester City Councils with a series of questions. I never knew him before. I think I knew members of your family, but can't say I know Mr. Daldry at all well. And so there's no personal or otherwise interest. It's just an email I picked up in the same way any of you could have picked up. You all had the opportunity to comment on his allegation. Let me finish if you want the questions. You let me answer you all could have commented on the points that he was raising. He emailed all of us, not just the Cabinet and chairs of committee.
Can I ask the monitoring? No.
Please let me finish. I'm giving you a very answer.
To the question. You've said that you're not declaring personal or prejudicial interest, though we have copies of emails from you that were copied in one of the applicants, and I'll ask the monitoring officer for advice.
So I can't hear the advice. Sorry, can I hear the advice? Why can't I hear the advice? Oh. See what I'm up against? Well, just stop a second, Jeremy. Liberal Democrat how a Liberal Democrat council's run. I hope a lot of people are watching this tonight.
Yeah, we've accepted that you've got no personal
What was
prejudicial
the
interest.
advice the monitoring officer just gave you? I'd like to share it since it's about me.
I've just told you. She's accepting. We've accepted your advice that you have no personal or prejudicial interest in this application, in the bid.
I mean, if you think I go around this house
For question 10,
and deliver conservative...
just calm down now. Can we move on to your first question, Councillor Gravels?
So I just find the way you treat members and members of the public pretty appalling.
No, neither of you got any respect for the chair.
So anyway, moving on. I have no questions on question 7 or question 8 on veterans. I will pursue that elsewhere, but thanks for the information. No questions on that. On question 9 on the incidents, I'm disappointed in your reply because your reply absolutely gives me no information at all. And it doesn't give any information at all to the people who live near the airport, thinking particularly of the residents of Staverton and Churchtown, people travelling up and down the M5. And I'm sure that all of those people who I've just referred to really would like to know how many incidents of airprox collisions, mid-air collisions were averted, and why you are reluctant to give me the information. I'm sure they would. So in the interest of putting information like that out in the public, will you tell the airport authorities that I've raised the issue with you? You told me that it's an operational matter, but despite that, you've got no problems with me writing to the airport saying, spoke to Andrew, spoke to Councillor Gravels, and it's fine to give him the information. I think in the interest of the people who live in Churchtown and Staverton, they certainly would like to know how many mid-air collisions have been averted and why the CAA have been involved.
Well, I think the most appropriate organisation to ask the questions about airprox incidents, and I know it's been reported in the papers, and it was about 11 over a 12-month period, is that you should direct the question directly to the managing director of the airport company or to the Civil Aviation Authority. I don't have enough technical information on the basic incidents other than I know the airport has addressed them.
The city and Cheltenham own.
Can we move on to the second question, Councillor Gravels?
Item 10, question 10, the contract to lease the site at Empsey, the one where you were asking if I had any sort of personal business interest there, made that perfectly clear. It's surprising when you read back through the emails. This has been going on for nearly 4 or 5 months, a long time. I've asked you to consider allowing ONS to look at this work in more detail, to have a review. You've turned that down. I've asked you, I emailed you, both of you, and Declan again over the weekend, saying, what are the dates for the letting of this contract? When will the people who applied get their answer? When will you have some information? You've ignored that. So the only conclusion I can come to, Leader, is that you are going to abandon this contract anyway. You are going to pull the plug. You are saying this is going to be pulled and we will have to start again. Can you confirm or deny that?
That's an inappropriate question to ask during the process of a tender consideration, but Declan will tell you more about the issue about overview and scrutiny.
Could you take some more advice from the monitoring officer and confirm whether or not the monitoring officer thinks that's an inappropriate answer for me to have?
We can do. You're asking a question about a current tender process which is being considered at this point of time, and you're asking for the outcome before a decision has been made.
Oh no, be very clear. You've obviously misunderstood.
No, yes, you are. I've heard you.
In the absence of the information that I called for, it seems to me you are going to pull this. Can you confirm or deny that?
No, we haven't made a decision.
So you're not willing to...
So Declan will respond to your question about whether overview and scrutiny should look at the process. Declan.
So can Declan respond to my...
Can you stop butting in? Declan will answer your question.
I don't get a chance. So could you ask Declan?
I'm asking Declan, can you be quiet? Let him answer your question.
Declan, when you speak, can you indicate whether or not the contract is going to be pulled?
Go on.
I can't comment on a live process at the minute when we're on disposal of council land, other than to say that ultimately my top priority is to make sure we've got something sustainable and council taxpayer gets value for money. But that's what you would expect anyway. As regards the question about overview and scrutiny, we obviously can't do this until when we're still in the middle of this. After it's finished, my preference would be, and I think it'd be more appropriate for it to go to audit and governance, since there's a governance issue here. We need to make sure that everything's done by the book and we're seen to be done by the book. And then when it's over, it's a sort of thing internal audit could look at, and as well, audit and governance can make sure that we have followed the proper processes and taken into account all the changes in legislation as well, which have come into effect recently. So I would be happy for that to happen, but as I said, cannot until we finished and awarded the contract.
Right then,
Likely to be?
question number 10, Councillor Gravels. Question number 11.
Oh, my goodness me, you make it very hard going, Jeremy, putting questions. You're not the easiest guy to get information out of. I have no other questions. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Bank the rest of my time that I didn't use. I'll use it next time. Thank you. Okay, you try.
Daphne Chambers.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, wait.
Stephanie, you've got some questions.
Yes, I have. Thank you, Chair. So my first supplementary is... I'm on this one, yeah? Will that work, or do I have to move that? Oh. You okay now? Yep, so my first supplementary is question number 12. So you said there's no rules, and I think that's what I'd established from speaking to officers. Will you consider putting... Ghost in here. Yep, so would you consider putting this on the next agenda for general purposes to work up a criteria for how reports are, whose name it goes on to report? So say something's 75% housing or planning, they should be in that name or a joint name. Would you consider that for the next general purposes?
I think we can probably sort that one out without going to general purposes, because I don't think it's a constitutional matter. Basically, we normally would take the cabinet member who's got responsibility for the actual decisions that are going to be taken. If there's a couple of members there, and there have been some papers that we've had a couple of members as being the lead, as I say, there's no hard and fast one, but it will be the portfolio holder that has got the responsibility with dealing with the actual decision that's being made, and the portfolio holder that probably understands the report. We wouldn't be substituting that portfolio holder. If the portfolio holder is not here, well, then it would be my job to answer those questions. But I think we can probably resolve that at group leaders rather than take it through the General Purposes Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Question number 13. I've had a scan over the bylaws, and they were really interesting. And I'm sure lots of authorities have out-of-date and bylaws and weird and wonderful. I was hoping to find something a little bit more unique, but there wasn't anything that good in there. As part of your overhaul of the enforcement of this authority, will you be looking at repealing those and making them more modern and up-to-date, and including all areas? Because I think at the moment they only cover some grounds, etc. They're quite old and out of date.
Yeah, we've moved over to public space protection orders for a lot of these things. And I know the Minister, Jim McMahon, is also looking at responsibilities because he's concerned about his involvement and having to sign off things which should be done by the local council. We can have a look at the current bylaws and ask the monitoring officer to advise, and whether we should rescind any of them or we move them into a public space protection order. But I've just had the list along with you, and I wouldn't really know how to comment any further than that. But I'm certain we can have a consideration of the bylaws, and we'll have a look at them. And I'll ask the monitoring officer to provide advice, because they are legal documents, and whether they have any powers or whether they need to be changed, or whether we need to use updated legislation. But frankly, if they're still workable and there's legislation behind them, then we should retain them unless we think otherwise.
Thank you, Chair. So my next question is number 14. It's for the Cabinet Member for planning. Without commenting on the current planning application, are you in support of regeneration in Posmead and other areas of the city which have these old concrete homes that are obviously terrible? Luke might be aware as well of some of the conditions within them are so terrible. No matter how Gloucester City Homes try to tackle them, it's a constant firefight with trying to keep these properties in a state which is probably legal, but certainly where nobody would want to live. Are you in support of carrying on the improvement of these properties and the regeneration in these areas?
Yes, very much so. As an administration, we support all regeneration in the city, and we want to facilitate that as quickly as possible and do everything we can in our powers to do that. We don't want any residents living in substandard properties in the city, so we'll do everything we can to make sure they're not.
Thank you. My last one is number 16, and it was, I don't know why it says the Cabinet Member of Environment. Did I put that on there? But it's, hang on. Oh, no, it's number 15, that's why. It was for Declan. So Declan, 9 days ago, you commented when I asked you about the Pentana system, and you said it is the sort of information that councillors should have access to. That was 9 days ago. What's changed your mind in giving councillors access to the Pentana system since 9 days ago?
If I recall, what I remember saying was I would look into it. If I did say it's the sort of information that they should have access to. I've looked into more detail the sort of information that's there, and I've also looked into the role of a councillor itself. I've always regarded being a councillor as being very akin to being a non-executive director of a company. And our governance role is councillors and non-exec directors provide oversight rather than direct management. Councillors, our role is to oversee the council's policies, budget and strategic direction. We don't really perform a management role as such. And I sort of put myself into, I thought back to my own career working in accounts and how I would feel if a non-exec director came up to me and sort of says, I want access to all the transactions you're making on the financial systems, I wouldn't be happy with that. And I doubt if the management of the company would be happy with that either. It's not really the role of the councillors as such to manage the staff. We're there to provide oversight and direct management. And I don't think giving councillors access to that level of operational detail really is necessary. We need to sort of, it's up to members to decide what it is they want to look into, and it's up to officers to work with them and provide them that information. I don't think there's any value in going into that level of detail and potentially really it would put staff under a lot of pressure, and it would also all the individual transactions they're doing, I don't think there's any value in any councillor necessarily having to dig in that far. So I think it's digging in too deep. So I wouldn't be in favour of doing that. I think we should concentrate on what our role should be. It's not management, it's oversight, and I don't think it would be a very good idea.
My next question, question number 16, it is in relation to enforcement action again, I think, yep. And when we're talking about oversight and what a role of a councillor is, a role of a councillor, one of the roles is oversight. I am talking about oversight of the enforcement action as a whole that this council undertakes. This council holds a lot of discretion. Discretion is where things can go wrong because it's not equal, or there's different things. Discretion should be there, but it can go in all different directions. The legal officers operate as a shared service, but technically as officers of this authority undertaking the legal work on our behalf. So there is no oversight currently of this operation of the council. And one thing we're tasked to do as our role of councillors is decision making. And I looked into the Constitution, I haven't got the exact wording in front of me right now, but our decision making is that we have all the information that we feel we need to make that decision. Now, every person is different in how they take in information, how they make their decisions, and what information they need to feel within themselves that they've made a good and informed decision. Now, I think it's up to an individual councillor to think that's the information I need. Somebody might feel differently. And I think the operations of this council are a very important thing to take into consideration when making decisions. So I disagree on the Pentana issue. And I would also disagree that there is any oversight of the enforcement action. There is no oversight by members of this enforcement action as a whole. There are areas of it that are covered, but there's a huge gap in this. And if you're overhauling the enforcement action of this council, you should be making sure it has a relevant oversight by members. And I would really urge you to look at this again. Now, this one went to Seb, but I'm talking about enforcement action across all portfolios, because I can't think of a portfolio that it doesn't cover. So,
Can I just answer it? The enforcement that the city council's going to be carrying out, we're restructuring the enforcement team to get them to work together as a single team and to do that. And I think we've also got policies on how we deal with enforcement. I think we approved some of them at the last cabinet meeting, which you will have had a copy of. So the importance of enforcement is that we do enforce issues where there's clear breaches, that we do it properly and fairly and within the law, and we treat every incident in the same way, but some will be escalated to more serious enforcement action if we've got more serious problems with it. And we know that there has been a backlog in planning breaches. We've got a number of those to resolve, the backlog that's happened because the enforcement team at the City Council has been too small. I understand that we should be able to increase that number, but I think when we've got the new team up, Steph, we can then ask them to probably report back on the actions that they've done and how it's worked. And that could be something that overview and scrutiny could ask to go on the agenda and to look at how it's operated. But we're still in a period of just about announcing how we're going to do it. And I'm still, the officers haven't fully worked it out yet. But the importance is that we make sure that we do enforce breaches of rules, but we also do it fairly. And sometimes it just requires a letter or a knock on the door and a chat to somebody to resolve the problem. Other times it might be more serious, where we've got to take action, if necessary, through the courts. But we'll always be fair. And I say we did agree that sort of policy, I think, at the last cabinet cabinet meeting. Can you? I'll let you this time round.
Thank you, Chair. The reason I'm asking these questions is because I do know you're working on this area, and I do think it's a good thing to bring it all in together and share workloads and things. I really think that is a good idea. However, I really would urge you to make sure that before it gets started, within that new system, you build in some oversight, because it will be a large part of this council. This council has statutory powers of enforcement, and all enforcement agencies have some oversight in governing bodies. If this doesn't, then we're an anomaly in the system.
I think we can ask officers to do that. I mean, the issue is we don't want to mark in advance that we are necessarily going to take legal action or things like that at a particular time. So we've got to treat it properly, and it's important also to ensure that if there are enforcement actions which have been resolved, that we're not naming individual businesses or people. I think we've just got to get it right. So we'll ask the officers to look at how we can report back as part of the review of the team. Right then. Question number 7. Agenda item number 7. That's to do with the local government reorganisation, the interim Gloucestershire response to the government. Members will know that the government issued a white paper in December 2024, and that there were moves afoot within the county to suspend the county council elections in order to rush through a proposal for just one solution to local government reorganisation in the county. Myself and 4 other district councils did write to Jim McMahon, the minister, saying, no, please, we've not done any work on this. There are a number of options available to us in the future. It's premature, and we wouldn't be able to get the work done in time. So we have got the elections on the 1st of May, and the minister has asked us, all local authorities, to provide an interim report to him on the 21st of March. That report is drafted as Appendix A. One is a single unitary, one is a 2 unitary model. The other one is a unitary based on the Greater Gloucester area, which has been mapped out in the public domain, with 1 or 2 other unitary authorities nearby. And we've got to work through plans over the next few months to put in a submission on the options by the 28th of November. And then about whether how you do a strategic authority, and whether Gloucestershire combines with Hereford and Worcestershire, or with the West of England combined authority that exists today. Those things have all got to be worked out. They've got to be modelled, and we've got to see what the implications are on service delivery, on democracy, on how people can oversee what's happening in their community. So discussed in detail, but with the 7 leaders, the county council leader and the 6 district leaders, and effectively what we see on the order paper should be what's signed off and should go in from every council leader to the minister. Quick point. Does anybody want to say anything on this one? No. Okay. So we'll move on to Sebastian, climate change strategy, agenda item 8.
Thank you, Leader. This is to review the responses to the Gloucester Climate Change Strategy consultation and to propose any amendments or changes to the strategy arising from those responses. We had the climate change strategy passed by Council in 2023, as all members will be aware, and it was a comprehensive piece of work, but we also had a requirement to put it out to the public and other authorities and partners to comment on the strategy. We've received a number of comments from the public and from bodies such as the County Council, and we've taken those on board. There was a good mixture of comments, and a lot of it was very useful and interesting. We've proposed some amendments based on those comments, which you can see in section 4 of the report. We've revised the climate change strategy accordingly, and we've revised my introduction a little bit to take into account some of those comments. And I think what it shows really is that the public in particular take a very keen interest in this issue, and in some ways they are ahead of us as a council. They're in front of us on these issues, and they do take it very seriously. And in my introduction, I say that we want to take the public on this journey with us, but I think it's also the public are leading us in the action that they want to see happen on climate change. It is an urgent issue. We have got to take action, and this strategy, when it's adopted and adapted and amended, this will give us the blueprint for the action that we need to take. So I would commend it to Cabinet and Council.
Anybody want to comment? Caroline.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I support the recommended amendments to the report. It's really encouraging to see that members of the public are keen to see us commit to action on climate change with everything else that's going on in the world. It's good that people are recognising that this is the foundation of everything else that's going on. And I think the proposals, particularly the feedback from county as well, County Council, just helps us to strengthen our commitment to those actions and to provide clarity to members of the public who are keen to see us taking action on these things.
Just come back on that. That's really really grateful for that, Councillor Courtney. It yes, it was a particularly useful set of responses from the County Council. Many things about active travel and about how we need to make our infrastructure for cycling very clear and designated. So that was really helpful. And I do think that the majority of the comments from the public were really constructive and useful. Where people were sceptical about climate change, because we have to acknowledge that there is still an argument going on about that, and there are still people who are not convinced by the science. Even taking that into consideration, if we take the measures that are listed in the climate change strategy, it will benefit Gloucester, whether people think it's to do with climate change or not, because often it will improve the quality of life for residents, and in many cases the climate change mitigation measures that we have, such as insulation and EV charging points and solar panels, they will at the very least save residents money as well as being better for the environment. So it's a win-win.
Can we agree the recommendations?
Yep.
item 9, that's Declan.
Thank you, Chair. First item, item number 9 is the housing benefit war pension disregard policy. The reason why this has to come before Cabinet is the Council administers housing benefit for the Department of Work and Pensions, and in accordance with legislation, we are allowed to modify the housing benefit scheme, the cost of which is met by the Council. We've done this for many years, and it offers additional protection for residents in receipt of any prescribed war disablement pension or prescribed war widows pension. This report seeks clarification from Cabinet that the modified scheme should continue. We need to do this as we've been unable to locate the modified scheme policy that we used to have due to the cyber attack of 2021. We lost it. Housing benefit is a means tested benefit that an entitlement is based on a comparison of the amount of the claimant's household income against an applicable amount, which is the minimum level of income for the household determined by the Department of Work and Pensions. In the national scheme, war disablement pension or war widows pension, their pensions are included as income in the calculation, which can reduce the amount of housing benefit the claimant is entitled to receive. However, our modified scheme, which has been in place for many years, disregards such income, which means that more housing benefit can be paid to the claimant. The current housing benefit caseload in Gloucester, for which the modified scheme applies, is just 9 claimants who are in receipt of a war widows pension or a widower's pension. So it's a small number with limited cost to the Council. The recommendation is therefore that Cabinet be asked to resolve the continuation of the current housing benefit war pension disregard policy so that we may disregard war pensions from the calculation of housing benefit as detailed at Appendix 1 and this be approved.
Yep, agree. Item number 10, revenues benefits sanction policy. That's again you, I think, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm on a run, I'm afraid. So this is the revenue and benefits sanction policy. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from Cabinet for the revised revenues and benefits sanctions policy. This policy needs to be updated to take account of changes in legislation that have occurred since our current revenues and benefits policy was approved in 2007. Historically, housing benefit and council tax benefit were governed by legislation from central government. Fraud allegations were investigated locally by specialist council officers. However, in 2013, council tax benefit, which was a national benefit, was abolished and was replaced by local authority council tax support schemes, of which ours is one of the most generous. In 2015, the Department of Work and Pensions became responsible for the investigation of housing benefit fraud, not local authorities. However, we remain responsible for investigating cases of fraud relating to council tax support, as this is not legislated for nationally. We therefore need to amend our policy to take into account these changes. Having an out-of-date sanctions policy exposes the Council to the possibility of not being able to effectively combat fraud and corruption in relation to the revenues and benefits business activities of the Council. The policy brings together a range of legislation which provides full range of sanctions, penalties and prosecutions available to councils to support an effective deterrent regime. I'm therefore asking Cabinet to approve the updated revenue and benefits policy, to update it and make it relevant to current legislation and investigative practices.
Okay. Yep, we'll approve that one.
Okay.
Financial monitoring quarterly 3
Right.
report.
Okay, I think my microphone is still on. Quarter 3 financial monitoring. This report is a summary of our financial performance for the year to date ending in the 3rd quarter. It includes the months from April to December. The latest year-end forecast is for a decrease in the general fund of 232,000 against a budgeted increase of 12,000. This is an improvement, however, of 32,000 on the previous quarter 2 report. The generic pressures remain, however, inflation, higher interest rates, energy prices, and uncertainty around the local government funding landscape as a result of the changes in government after the general election. It also creates big uncertainty, and we've seen this sadly in our settlement for the budget next year. So therefore, the expectation is that the financial challenges will continue in the short to medium term. Key pressures by portfolio in resources in my own area. We've got the ongoing saga at the Longsmith Street car park. Essential repairs and maintenance have cost us so far around about £500,000 in this financial year, and that's delivered us a big hit to the budget. Commercial property also, once the forum is complete, the council will see an increase in net income. The year-end forecast has improved by 189,000 from the previous Q2 report, primarily as a result of a new head lease in Eastgate Shopping Centre. The indoor market, however, has been struggling due to a high number of vacancies. We've been tackling legacy issues, particularly around licences, and most of these have been resolved. We've also recently started to fill up the market with new stalls, including a new greengrocer, which has been positioned prominently by the entrance. Cemeteries and crematorium services, difficult to forecast. There was some cremator downtime at the start of the year, and that's impacted the numbers. But as you said, the death rate, sort of something we just have to take a guess at it. Mitigation measures will include changes to the car parking arrangements at Eastgate and Kings Walk shopping centres, bringing the external post back in-house and a new contract for outgoing mail, and the digitisation of council services. In housing, homelessness and housing expected to be favourable by the end of the year, thanks to grant funding and increased levels of enforcement fines. As a result of the financial hit from the significant increase, however, for the demand for temporary accommodation last year, the council has embarked on mitigation measures, including the purchase of several properties. These should now be available and will alleviate a lot of the cost pressures. In the environment, it's mostly recycling. The baler we heard about earlier in the year had a major overhaul. Built materials is where we get most of our income from in recycling, and it was out earlier on in the year, and that was in the Q1 report, which got a lot of publicity. There was also mechanical difficulties at the end of this calendar year with the sorting line, which led to additional repair costs and lost commodity sales income. These sorts of things happened, unfortunately, and we've got no choice but to sort of take that on the chin. In the planning portfolio, it's another area that's difficult to forecast. We reduced the planning income budget from last year, but we are still down in the number of applications coming in. We decided to be prudent, but as I said, it's hard to predict, but we expect to be down once again on the budget as we were last year. In culture and leisure, there is an improvement of 71,000 on the previous report. But the big variance here is the 117,000 loss on the Tall Ships Festival. I understand it wasn't an overspend as such, but a disappointingly less than expected return from ticket sales and sponsorship. Legal and procurement costs incurred earlier in the year and the financial year in the process of finding a new leisure provider were also significantly higher than budget, and it was around about 60,000. However, going forward, Freedom and Leisure will be paying us a management fee, rather than the other way around, as has been the case in the past. And energy efficient measures have been installed at the leisure centre, utilising a grant received from Sports England. Freedom Leisure will also be utilising an approved capital fund, which we approved at the end of last year, which will improve facilities for both GL1 and Oxtalls. You'll find details of earmark reserves on page 12, capital programme on appendix 1, and finally on page 13, a summary of our prompt payment performance, which frankly is outstanding in my view. If a private company had a record like that, a lot of smaller companies would be in a better position. So that is the report, and I think we just need to note it.
Anybody got any comments on that? Right, can I thank the officers, particularly those dealing with the finance of the council, and also the cabinet member for trying to resolve the problems. I mean, hopefully we'll get the budget better settled than maybe it has been in the past, and we have been hit by a number of unexpected expenditures, and particularly the works that were required to deal with the public car parks. Maybe a legacy of underspending on the car parks in their maintenance over the years, and we're trying to get to grips with that. But can I thank the cabinet member in particular for looking over the finances of this council. Anybody got any comments? Sebastian.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd echo that. Thanks to the officers and particularly to Councillor Wilson for all the work he's doing on this. With regard to my own portfolio, this has come up from time to time, the issue about the baler breaking down earlier in the financial year and the salt line at Christmas, which is very much the worst time you want to have it. But it must be said that the team work extremely hard to save as much recycling as they can and get it bailed up in the best way that they can, often, sort of fudging it slightly, but still getting that income from it via Plan B, who market our recycling for us, and they do an excellent job. And actually, when the baler was down earlier in the financial year, we still didn't lose an awful lot of money. The figures that were reported in the press were vastly inflated and inaccurate, and actually we got a lot of income saved from the recycling by sort of storing it over to the following month, and the figures were not too bad. The other thing to say is that the baler and the sort line are in operation pretty much all the time when the depot is open. They're not lying idle, so you are going to get things, you are going to get problems with them. They do break down from time to time. We fix them as quickly as we can, and it needs to be said that actually the baler and the sort line now have been nearly fixed, and they've had so many new parts that actually they're nearly new, as was remarked at scrutiny the other night. That's the case. The alternative is to buy another one, but I actually think that would be a mistake, because it would just lie idle half the time. And probably what we should do is, in the long run, look at when this is coming to the end of its life, the baler and the sort line, we just kind of keep it as a spare, as it were, and get a new one. But it's not yet at that point, I don't think. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with LGR. But in the meantime, I think we've got a good recycling service, and I expect the recycling figures, particularly for the income, to bounce back and be robust.
Do I have anybody else want it? Luke?
Thank you. Yes, I'm pleased to see that the housing portfolio is favourable due to additional grant funding. The only way to maintain this is to change the way that we deal with housing and homelessness within the city, which is part of my long-term plan with new initiatives. The council finances are still very tight, so we need to make sure that we tread carefully and recover from the past.
Thank you. No other comments? We'll agree to that report coming. Recommendations there? Yep. Treasury management strategy. Oh, this is you again.
Yes, me again. Right. Treasury management update. This is the Q3 update. The CIPFAR, is the Charter of Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, Code of Practice for Treasury Management, recommends that members be updated on treasury management activities at least quarterly. So this report ensures that the Council is implementing best practice in accordance with the code. The report also provides issues specific to the Council, and also interest rate forecasts provided by the Council's Treasury advisors. The body of the report provides an overview of the Council's performance for the third quarter of 24-25. Appendix 1 highlights the key performance indicators in line with the Council's Treasury Management Strategy, and Appendix 2 is the interest rate forecast provided by our advisors. The Treasury Management Strategy for 24-25, which includes the annual investment strategy, was approved by Council on the 21st of March 2024. It sets out the Council's investment priorities as being security of capital, liquidity and yield. The Council will aim to achieve the optimum return or yield on its investments commensurate with proper levels of security and liquidity and with the Council's risk appetite. In the current economic climate, it is considered appropriate to keep investments short-term to cover cash flow needs, but also to seek out value available in periods up to 12 months. With highly credit-rated financial institutes using our suggested creditworthiness approach, including a minimum sovereign credit rating and credit default swaps overlay information. As shown by the interest rate forecast in Appendix 2, rates have improved dramatically during the first 3 quarters of 24-25 and are expected to improve further as bank rates continue to increase. The equated levels of fund available for investment purposes during the year to date was 12.1 million. These funds were available on a temporary basis, and the level of funds available was mainly dependent on the timings of preset payments, receipt of grants, and progress on the capital programme. With regards to borrowing, no long-term borrowing was undertaken during the 3rd quarter of 24-25. Gilt yields and the Public Works Loan Board rates were on a rising trend at the end of 2024. This next sentence that I'd originally written, or was on the report, some time back, says they are expected to come down once the market has calmed. I think I would take that one with a pinch of salt at the minute. But I suspect the market actually it's just a bit of turbulence caused by a certain person across the water. Debt rescheduling opportunities have remained a possibility in the current quarter by those parties with significant surplus cash and a flat or falling capital finance requirement in future years. Members will be advised if there's a value to be had by rescheduling or repaying a part of the debt portfolio. With regards to compliance with Treasury and prudential limits, during the financial year, the Council has operated within the Treasury limits set out in the Council's Treasury Management Strategy Statement and in compliance with the Council's Treasury Management practices. So therefore, the recommendation is the contents of this report be noted.
Agreed? Yeah. Next one. You're a busy man tonight.
Yeah, it's me again. This is the Treasury Management Strategy, and you'll see in the last Treasury Management update, it refers to the Treasury Management Strategy, which is agreed by this Council every March. It's a very key document. So this is the document that we will be measured against next year when we look at the Treasury, the report, the performance of Treasury Management. The recommendation before us is that the Cabinet is asked to recommend that the Treasury Management Strategy be approved. The authorised borrowing limit be approved at 305 million for 25-26, 26-27 and 27-28, and the prudential indicators set out in Section 2 of the strategy be approved. The Treasury Management Strategy recommends to continue operating within an under-borrowed position. This position reflects that the Council uses internal resources such as reserves to fund borrowing need rather than invest those funds for a return. The strategy is sensible at this point in time for 2 reasons. Firstly, the lost interest in these funds is significantly less than the cost of borrowing money for the capital programme. In addition, using the resources to reduce debt, the Council will reduce exposure to investment counterparty risk. The strategy allows flexibility for either debt rescheduling or long-term fixed interest rates borrowing, while allowing the Council to benefit from lower interest rates on temporary borrowing at the current time. The strategy also includes the minimum revenue provision policy statement. This policy continues with the practice approved last year. The Council is required to approve a Treasury Management Strategy before the start of each financial year to meet the requirements of the Local Government Act. The Treasury and investment strategies recommended provide the best platform for financing the long-term capital programme and managing daily cash flow while protecting Council funds. So therefore, the recommendation is that we approve the Treasury Management Strategy for next year.
Caroline.
I just thought I'd say something to give Declan a break for a minute. No, I'm happy to support the recommendations in this report. I mean, Declan is clearly the expert in this area far more than I am, but it was set out and explained in a way that was really easy to follow and easy to understand the justification for the approach that we're taking with this Treasury strategy. I'm another one who struggles with that word. So yeah, big thanks to officers for explaining it in a digestible way, and happy to support.
That's approved, I gather. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next item is 14, pay policy statement.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, pay policy statement. The purpose of this report is to consider and approve the council's pay policy statement for 25-26. The Localism Act requires local authorities to produce an annual pay policy statement, and this is applied since 2012-13 onwards, which must be agreed annually by full council. Appendix 1 is where you will find the full statement. It lists the number of staff and their FTE equivalents. It also contains details of our pay structures and grades at both Green Book and Chief Officer level and the salary bands for most senior officers at the Council. Cabinet is therefore asked to recommend that the pay policy statement for 2025-2026 attached as Appendix 1 be approved.
Any comments? Approved? Yep. Now we come to item 15, car parking management review. I think that's your final report, Declan.
Yes, it is. This one is probably more interesting. Well, not that the others weren't, but this is it's an interesting policy change, or sort of a change in how we manage two of our biggest car parks, and it will affect a lot of people moving forward. The purpose of this report is to review and update the current arrangement for management of and enforcement within the council's car parks, given the current contract expiry of August 2025, and to note that the proposed forward for the replacement of new car park equipment in some car parks. Therefore, we have been asked to resolve that the council bring in-house the services referred to in section 2 of the attached appendix be approved. The council's appointment of a contractor to carry out enforcement of the council's car parking order be approved. Authority be delegated to the property and investment manager in consultation with the head of finance and resources, cabinet member for resources, and director of One Legal to undertake a procurement for and appoint a suitable enforcement contractor. And finally, 4, be noted that the parking equipment Eastgate and King's Walk will be replaced to implement pay and display and app-based payment in line with other car parks. The automated number plate recognition pay on foot equipment in Eastgate and King's Walk are over 8 years old and reaching the end of their practical useful lives, leading to several breakdowns in recent months, potentially causing the council lost revenue. The council currently only has a first-line maintenance contract for the ANPR machines, which in practice means that the council often has to pay additionally for call-outs to fix problems. In contrast, the council's pay and display machines, which operate in other car parks, are more reliable, and officers can repair most issues on site themselves. Additionally, with pay and display machines which have broken down, there's usually a lesser financial impact, as there are often other machines in the area, or customers will have the ability to pay by app. At present, an ANPR pay on foot machine system only operates payment methods at the machines and is not compatible with the MI permit app-based parking system that we have elsewhere in the portfolio. A further advantage of pay and display compared to ANPR is that tariff changes can be done by the in-house team. This means that free parking for things like Christmas promotions can be activated instantly, whereas with the current ANPR system, they have to be looked at a cost, have to be booked in at a cost for them to be changed. We did consider replacing the current equipment with a like-for-like upgrade. However, the ongoing maintenance costs for operating the system and the current issue around lack of compatibility with the council's MI permit app and disabled parking would still be present. Therefore, the alternative option of changing the operation of the Eastgate and King's Walk car parks to pay and display, including app-based payments, is the recommended approach. And I hope I have cabinet support for that.
Are we happy to do that? I mean, it will modernise the car parks. It will also, at no cost for the hourly rates, increase the income to this council, which is one of our manifesto strategies, that we should be ensuring that we maximise the income from our commercial assets. And I think this report should be fully endorsed. It's a good one. Are we okay with that? Yep. Thank you. Well, it's 7 o'clock and I'll end the meeting. Thanks for turning up.
Yeah.